What are some of the greatest plays in Eagles history? Was it this one? Or how about this one? Remember this? Maybe you think this is one of the all-time standouts. Well, we're going to have your picks, and we'll hear from the experts as well, as It's Your Call talks about the 50 greatest plays ever made by the Philadelphia Eagles. And it all begins right now. So if you're a die-hard Eagles fan, then I'm sure you have a pretty strong opinion on which play or plays will go down in history as some of the best ever. But will your fellow fans and sports writers agree with your choice? That's what we're going to find out when we meet Eagles beat writer Reuben Frank and columnist Mark Eckel, authors of the new book Game Changers, the 50 Greatest Plays in Philadelphia Eagles History. Hi there, everyone. It's great to have you along for what I'm sure will be a very interesting debate. I'm Lynn Doyle, joined together by a couple of fellows who are longtime followers of the NFL and specifically the Philadelphia Eagles. Reuben Frank is the Eagles beat writer for the Burlington County Times, and Mark Eckel is a longtime Eagles beat writer and current columnist for the Trenton Times. Together, they have compiled what they say are the top 50 plays in the franchise's history. And the result is their new book, Game Changers, the 50 Greatest Plays in Philadelphia Eagles Football History. Hey guys, good to have you both with us.
Excellent, great to be here.
I got to ask you, you really have the nerve to call this work? You have to sit and watch game after game after game and then pick some of the best plays ever. How'd you manage to do it?
It was a lot of fun. You know, when we started this project, Mark and I each came up with a list of what we thought were our own 50 plays, and we compared lists, and we had 40 or 41 plays were the same. So
it wasn't that hard.
It really wasn't that tough.
We really kind of started out, coming from the same place. And
well, we originally wanted to do 100. The way this book came about is kind of interesting. Reuben and I talked about doing this on our own. We were going to do 100 greatest plays. And then Rube got a call from Triumph for asking him if he'd want to do the 50 greatest. So
yeah, half as much work.
Yeah,
50 instead of 100.
So he called me and said, "Hey, listen, you're not going to believe this. We were talking about it, and then they actually did it." So.
Okay, so what constituted a great play? Did you establish some sort of criteria that the play had to meet?
You know, I think the three things we were looking at was how important was the play, how amazing physically was the play, and then just what did it mean in team history, and how important was it as far as the big picture, the meaning, the symbolism, what did it represent, and to be one of the top plays, it had to have everything. And then some of the plays farther down aren't really important plays team-wise, but they were so amazing we had to include them.
Well, you know, that's interesting that you point that out, because I said at the start of the show, what are some of the greatest plays? These aren't necessarily the greatest plays in terms of the outcome of the game, but a game changer. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always good for Philadelphia, right?
Well, no. Every play that we don't have any bad plays in there. We thought about that. Matter of fact, we were going to do a list of the 50 worst plays, which would have included Rondé Barber, Tommy Hutton. But now these are all great plays by an Eagle player or the team. There are some losses in there.
Right.
I think 5, right, Rube?
Yeah.
There's 5 games that the Eagles lost in spite of the great play.
Okay, so you had this criteria.
And there's one play that didn't even involve an Eagles game.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite.
That's another story. We'll talk about that.
Okay, so you had the criteria and you wanted to narrow it down to the 50. Where did you begin?
We put everything in groups of 10 at first, 1 through 10, 11 through 20. And we kind of, started from there, and we just worked with each group of plays. But we were moving plays up and down right until the deadline. I mean, right until like the day before this manuscript was due, we were moving stuff up.
I actually joked that Vi's play moved more than he did on the punt return.
If I said to him a play, we moved it like literally 50 times. It was always like, we need to move something. All right, move Vi again.
Move Vi up, move him down, move him over. I think he wound up right where he started. Right about.
How many arguments did the two of you have trying to determine placement of the players?
Not nearly as many as you would think.
Really?
Really, no. Like Rube said, when we did the 50, I thought off the go we were going to argue. We were going to have so many different. There was only a few that we had different, so that made it easy. The top 10, we really agreed. We agreed, I think, totally on what the 10 were.
Yeah.
Now, putting them in order, to me, that was the hardest part.
Okay, we're going to talk about that top 10. And you can explain to us how it is that you did organize them. You
convinced me of Deuce's play, but then I gave in. Deuce Staley's touchdown was a game that they lost, a game against Tampa Bay. My original feeling on that was, it was such a terrible loss. So I was kind of trying to talk him out of it, but he talked me into it by saying, but that play... And I'll say this too, there are certain players that we wanted to get in the book, that we felt they belonged in the book. Deuce Staley was one of those players that we felt he's one of the greatest Eagles. One of his plays needs to be in the book. All right, that plays in the book. Okay,
what we're going to do, even though there are 50 game-changing plays here, obviously we don't have enough time to talk about all of them. But what we're going to do is throughout the show kind of highlight the top 10 for you, our own version of David Letterman's top 10 list here for you. But I do want to touch on the numbers 11 through 50 because they are of some interest. If you had to pick one, let's say, somewhere between 20 and 50 that's worth a chapter, what would it be?
My favorite one from the lower, we were just talking about this before we started, there was a play against the Giants when Damon Moore knocked out Ronnie Dixon of the Giants at the 2-yard line on a fluke play in the last few seconds of a game. He'd gone 80 yards. If he scores, the Eagles don't make the playoffs. They have to win the next week. And it's one of the most, it's a play that we actually say it could have been higher because Ron Dixon ran from the 20. He took a lateral, and it was a crazy play. It went down the left sidelines from the 20, the 30, the 40, all the way to the 2-yard line. And Damon Moore came from across the field and knocks him out at the 2-yard line. And when you watch that play, you can't believe he's going to make the play. There's no way possible. So that's one play that is pretty low ranked, but it's an amazing play. And it was important because if he scores, they have to go the next week to Tampa and beat the Buccaneers just to make the playoffs. And that play clinched the division title for the Eagles.
And that particular season, wasn't Tampa Bay doing really well, particularly at home?
Yes.
Yeah, they were.
They were like 6-2 or
5-2 and you want
like
Tampa on the road in cold. Or at least we thought until one year.
But this year they ended up playing Tampa again and beating them in the playoffs.
And in the lower ranked plays, did you agree with that one, or did you have one of your own?
Well, there's a story. My favorite story is Bill Bradley, the old Eagle who played in when the team was pretty bad. And
not the basketball player.
No, not the basketball player from Princeton, who I also know. But no, Bill Bradley, the safety, who's one of the greatest Eagle players ever. His first interception, and he has the most ever by any Eagle, tied with Eric Allen and Brian Dawkins, but his first ever one was in a game at Dallas. Eagles are getting killed. They're losing. Dallas is real good then. The Eagles are bad. And he's dying to get in the game because he's from Texas. The game's in Dallas. He has a bunch of friends and family, and he's not playing. He's a rookie. He's begging the coach to put him in, and Dallas keeps scoring. It's 35-0. It's 41-0, whatever. Come on, coach. Can I go in now? Can I go in now? Finally, they said, all right, Bradley, get in the game. And he intercepts a pass from Roger Staubach, Hall of Famer. He steps in front of Mike Ditka, Hall of Famer, and he's chased to the end zone by Bob Hayes, Hall of Famer.
Wow.
So to me, that was just a great story.
And it's interesting that you mentioned these aren't just the most recent or current plays.
Oh, no, we go back.
I mean, you go back to what, the 40s, right?
A couple plays from the 40s
so?
from the teams that won.
And so if you're a football aficionado, this is the book for you.
We have every era covered except the 30s because they didn't have any good plays.
Or the 60s, for that matter.
Okay, we're going to invite our viewers to tell us what they think. We've been talking a little bit here about Game Changers, the 50 greatest plays in Philadelphia history. We want to know what you think. Can you name your top 10 plays? And is there one or a couple that really, really stick out in your mind as an outstanding moment in Eagles history? And which team is the best of all time? They didn't cover that in the book, but I'm going to give you a chance to tell us what you think. I'm going to ask them as well. You know how it works. We want you to be interactive here, so I invite you to email your thoughts and your opinions to me. A couple of ways you can do it. Log on to csnphilly.com. That's ComcastSportsNet.com. Put on IYC or It's Your Call. That'll take you to my webpage. You can leave me a comment there. Or if you like, you can email me directly right here at the show. That's TCN, the Comcast Network, _IYC at ComcastNetwork.com. Of course, as always, you can find us on Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. Now, of course, we have comments from our Facebook friends about some of your selections, and of course there, so we're going to go ahead and share those with you throughout the half hour as well. Let's talk about number 10. Let's look at our version of the top 10 list. It is a pretty controversial one. Explain why.
Well, simply, it was a bad play. This is Miracle to Meadowlands. It was a bad play by the Giants more than it was a great play by the Eagles. And it's that simple. We think it was an overrated play.
A little bit. I mean, it belongs in the top 10.
Aren't you alone in that?
Yes.
in that thinking?
We're alone in a lot of
people list this as 1 or 2.
Yes, they do.
They're wrong.
And we put it in the top 10. I insisted that and Ruben you were good with me.
Yeah.
It belongs in the top 10. It is a top 10 play, but it really wasn't a play. It was if I was doing the worst plays in Giants history, it'd be number 1.
Okay, so explain to folks who may not know what the Miracle.
The game's over. The Giants are going to beat the Eagles. It kind of all they had to do was take the snap and kind of kneel down, let the clock run out.
Okay.